Hey,
Hey, ¿cómo
¿qué
estás?
onda?
¿Qué cuentas, Hugo?
Bien, qué gusto verte. Todo bonito ese color.
Igualmente. Oye, ¿tú te acuerdas ahorita? Ya ves que cambió el orden, Melina, era yo hoy y luego ¿quién es el miércoles?
Ahí estoy yo también. O sea, sé que estás tú, Stuart, y cierra, debe ser Stuart, y luego cierra John.
Ah, ok. Es que el miércoles no voy a poder. El otro lunes sí, pero el miércoles no.
Ajá. Pero en principio no tienes que estar, pero creo que estaría bien que te pase la,
Me
la
encantaría.
grabación. Así lo tenemos, sí. Y lo que te decía es que podíamos utilizar esto como warm-up y
Ujú.
entonces armar una discusión más adelante, formal, ordenada y con las características como más institucionales, perdón por el corporate, pero
No, es que
institucionales.
yo no quería nada corporate, o sea, lo único que
Sí,
decía
bueno,
que
pero, o sea, como lo que quería decir era más profesional, ¿no?
sí.
Y entonces, como podemos armar algo ya después de esto, que sea mucho más pro, mucho más widespread, y nos puede servir. Entonces, si te paso la grabación, ves las tres o estamos en las tres y de ahí hacemos el siguiente paso, creo que se siente bien, ¿no? O sea,
Perfecto. Sí, no, feliz. Y me dijo Melina entonces que ella iba a dar la primera mitad de ahorita.
ajá, o sea, la idea, y te explico antes de que entren todos los demás,
Ajá.
pero es que Melina pueda dar una explicación biológica, o sea, que nos metamos deep en biology y que después tú puedas como reintegrar esto a tu forma de pensar, o sea, cómo eso te serviría a ti para poderlo llevar y que después regresemos a conclusiones, ¿no? Pero, o sea, como que la idea es que nos podamos retroalimentar unos con otros.
Súper. Hola Meli, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Mm,
¿Cómo andan?
bien, ¿y tú ya feliz?
Pues sí, con muchas cosas porque hubo como, hay un desbalance en las hormonas del sol, entonces toca como habituarse un montón, tiene un medicamento, entonces pues nada, como feliz, pero como, como, ay, pucha, y ahora
Adaptando.
como es, claro, pero bien,
Ay, Meli, pues toda la
sí,
fuerza, de verdad.
sí,
Tenemos,
gracias.
tenemos una persona más que está por entrar. ¿Quieren que ya lo admita y empezamos la presentación? O quieres hablar algo justo antes de que lo admita?
¿Yo? O sea,
Melina, como
No,
si...
yo no, o
¿Vamos?
sea, ¿y quién es?
Se llama Harry, pero ya se fue, es de Biomimicry New York, como de los que, bueno, que yo veo que está ahí, ¿no? Pero ya se fue, como que ya se
Ah,
aburrió.
bueno, ups.
Se está grabando
¿Pero hacía
y
rato estaba o qué?
llevaba desde el mismo tiempo que tú, más o menos. Pero ahora le envío el link, no te preocupes por él, pero, o sea, como que estamos los tres, si quieren, empezamos, lo grabamos y, o sea, ya se está grabando, como nada más damos una entrada y empezamos la presentación, ¿les parece?
Bueno,
¿O cómo ves, Laura? ¿Ya estás lista?
sí. ¿Yo tengo que tener la cámara prendida todo el tiempo o la tengo nomás cuando hablo?
como quieras. Yo
Ok,
diría que la dejaras prendida para que estemos, pero
ok.
Perfecto. Pues entonces, welcome. So thank you, Melina, for being here and for hosting this event on biomimicry and finance. I'm super happy to share this space with you and with Laura. Could you please give us a small introduction on what it's all about?
sure. We are going to talk today on how we can be living beings thinking about finances. So it's kind of an experiment that we want to do with biomimicry today. And we have a great guest, which is Laura Ortiz. And I think that when people will come in, I will present Laura. And and we will see more on what is going on today. So
perfect. So today with us, this is an event. Would you like to put the communication, the visual communication, just to explain the format of this event? So we know that it is a biomimicry and finance, and we are representing here the Regenerative Communities Network. And in the Regenerative Communities Network, we work closely together with the Capital Institute, SBX, and many other institutions. So Laura decided to join this experiment with us. And she's just such a great asset for a network. And she has been pushing impact investment all over the world, I would say, and putting nature in the conversations of many financial circles. So today is going to be Laura, and then on July the 7th is going to be Stuart Cohen, and the 12th is going to be John Fullerton with us. So if you have missed one or the other, then please reach us out and we can share this kind of conversations, since are going to be recorded. So Laura, would you like to introduce a little bit of yourself and your work just quickly, so we can jump into the dynamic of this experiment, please?
Sure. So thank you, Hugo and Melina, for organizing and for inviting me. And so basically, back in 2008, back when the financial crisis was hitting the New York Stock Exchange, I used to be a banker, and I used to participate in two very large banks. And after being some years in wealth management and asset management, I had a little bit of health issues and a lot of re-questioning of my entire life. And basically, you hit one of those days that are a turning point in your life. And I decided to leave banking. But with the knowledge of the experience that I've had, I wanted to, really help redirect capital towards a different purpose. So I didn't even know what existed. And I just, set out to find out. That was back in 2014. And basically, ever since, I co-founded my own company, which is SBX Mexico. And that's where we do, impact investing advice for Mexico and Latin America. We've been very actively working in more than 6 countries now. And our mission is that wealth is here to serve humanity and life, and not to govern it. That's our mission and purpose.
Perfect, thank you. And Stuart, more than welcome.
Hi.
How
Hi,
are
everyone.
you?
Hi, Stuart.
I see yourself in the screen,
Hey.
and you're going to be one of our guests. Well, today you are more than welcome, and your main role will be in the next one. But could you please introduce yourself a little bit, Stuart, so we know that we are part of the same community around here?
Yes. Hi, I'm Stuart Cowan. I'm based in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the United States, and I'm working on regenerating landscapes at scale and thinking about new ways to connect finance and biodiversity to do that, thinking about straightforward business models that can allow us to restore grasslands, restore agricultural lands, marine areas, forests, and make those work. Like, the details get incredibly interesting and difficult. And so, along with my own company, Autopoiesis, working on large scale efforts around regenerative finance platforms and networks and funds, I'm also working very practically with the company in my backyard called Santa Fe Farms, where we're literally working with tribal nations here in the US to together have a respectful model for land regeneration and figure out how to make that viable. So great to be here.
Thank you, Stuart. And Melina, could you just give us a hint on what are we going to see today and what is the structure, and then we just go with you and we start rolling this?
Sure.
Thank you.
first of all, we are a group of biomimetics that are connected with the regeneration world and with people working with regeneration around the world. And what we want to hit here is one of the main issues on how support and finance regeneration in the world. So we want to do an experiment here with you. And it is about doing biomimicry with very high quality people that work in finances and thinking about how to move money around in a very efficient way for regeneration of the world. So, so we are this biomimetic. This is Hugo as well. Hugo is a biomimicry professional and comes from the world of the business and an entrepreneur. And then I am Melina Angel. And I am a biologist, and I'm theoretical biologist and an evolutionary biologist. And I have been working with biomimicry for 10 years or more now. So the experiment that we want to do at this point is with the RCN, which is the Regenerative Communities Network, who that is this big network of bioregions and people that are locally tuned with how we can regenerate the landscapes.
There's still
so we have background noise. If you can maybe mute yourself.
No.
And that's what the experiment is, how to connect this global thinking about finances and how to connect it with local actions. So
Melina,
the idea today, yes.
It's Ben. I'm so sorry. I had not heard back from you when I asked for the Zoom link, and then I looked and I saw that you had provided it like a while ago. But since I didn't know that and we had people registered, I sent out a new Zoom link. So we have 6 people in a different Zoom call waiting for this. I had sent out a bunch of emails this morning too. So I don't know what the best thing is to do. I can put the Zoom info into this chat and you could move over there, or where I could tell everybody here to move to this line, whatever you think is simpler.
Well, I think that we are recording this already, so maybe you can just give them,
bring them over here.
Link. Yeah.
Okay, so can you hold on a minute, please? And just pause the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry about the mix-up.
Okay. Or can you pause the record so we can just wait for people?
Yeah, but if you pause, sorry.
Welcome everyone. Sorry about the mix with the link.
I guess we go back 2 slides, right? Or
yes, we're gonna go back just a little bit, and we have just started. So for all of you who haven't been for the last 5 minutes, let's say, that this is an experiment that we want to carry on biomimicry as emulating nature into the finance world and thinking in order to advance and go further into the regeneration of the world. So we are these people today hosting this session, and this is Hugo Araujo, who's going to be mapping a little bit the discussions when will be arriving to that point. And he's a biomimicry professional and who has been working a lot with nature into our thinking into like ecosystemic thinking, how we can see ourselves as part of the ecosystems. And this is also Laura Ortiz. She has been converted banker, and she has been working in impact investment for the last, I don't remember how many years, but you have a lot of background in understanding the impact for regeneration in the finances world, and how to move this money towards the point that we really need it in the planet. So we are really, really grateful to have Laura with us today. And this is me. I am biologist. I am theoretical and evolutionary biologist, and biomimicry professional as well. And we are going to do a reconnection process. And this is kind of a connection with two people, with two worlds, let's say, which is biomimicry and the RCN of the Regenerative Communities Network, who are people connected with bioregions around the world and trying to bring this local, global mindset of paradigm shift and regeneration in the world, and going further sustainability into local actions. So we are, Laura is part of the RCN, and we both are part of the RCN, but we are biomimics. So we are want to do this as a very first experiment of linking finances and biomimicry from this perspective of action. So one part of what we want to do today is to, bring nature in a very deep way of understanding on how nature works. And the idea is to really link the three bases of levels of nature into the three sessions we are going to have today on Wednesday and next Monday. So this is what will be each of these sessions. And today we are going to do the living systems. And the way we are going to do that is by me presenting some biology. And the idea is that you will be thinking about the finance world, the economy, and the business. Listen to me. So it is not like I want you to learn all the biology, but I want to present the biology in a way that maybe will give you ideas and insights on how we can manage resource flows and money flows, and like trying to understand a little bit on how nature does this kind of flows in order for us to be inspired. So the idea is that you will be thinking and imagining how the finances will be more likely the biology examples that will be presented. And then we want to chat a little bit, maybe writing in the chat or just speaking out aloud. And we want Laura to present us how she has been integrating a little bit this life intelligence into her work. And maybe if some ideas rise from this conversation for Laura too, it could be really interesting to listen to her embody or integrating or imagining in her work. So, and at the end, we will have final reflections with Hugo, who will be presenting the map that he will be doing during the session. So the first point is that we are living beings, and that we really need to get out from ideology to get into biology and get more into this real world of the planet and the biosphere we are in. And the first thing that we know about biology is that the cells are there. Like we are made out of kind of a design of a cell, which has it's like a container of things inside, of structures inside. And there is a membrane, there is a limit that it is integrating and relating with the environment. And that's something that we really need to get into our understanding of the limits, because there is this think about how is to be an individual into a collective being. And this is very important from finances perspective, how we can understand the collective. But nature show us how it is. And actually, there are very few organisms that are just one cell. When we have one cell, we have examples of colonies and being together and living and sharing and understanding. And one thing that I want to focus on today is how these cells share resources, especially in animals, vertebrates, so we. And how they do that actually is to there are many different kind of junctions between the cells. And this is like a gap junction, is called. And it's because each cell will create kind of a channel.
Your
Did we
throat.
lose Melina?
Yeah, we lost Melina, I think.
Be
Might need to wait a little bit.
to pass resources through those channels, in charge of creating this. Oops.
Melina,
Can you hear me?
we have lost you when you started to
Yes.
talk about the gap junction. Could you just repeat it on the gap junction, please?
Sure. Now you can hear me good? Okay, great. Okay, so what cells do is
We're getting a gap whenever you speak about the gap.
in their cellular membrane. So in the limits of themselves, they will create this they
Maybe we shouldn't learn about the gap junction. It's too dangerous for you guys.
We just fell into the gap.
Yeah. So let's wait until she's there. Maybe if you turn off your video and you let the screen to be shared with the video, that will work best.
Okay.
Melina, can you hear us, Melina?
She dropped off the call, I think.
Oh.
I don't think she's here. Oh no, she's back now.
I see her there, but
No, yeah, you're right. Maybe I just missed her. I think it's her video, turning off her video, that would make the difference. I'm not sure it matters.
yeah, exactly. Let's just recommend her to do that. I have a presentation as well. Maybe I can look for it and I can present it. Like I can click the presentation.
Yeah, I think that would be better so that her connection doesn't, occupy that bandwidth.
Yeah. Let me.
Now I don't see her on the call again.
No, she dropped off. She will come back.
Well, maybe it's a sign we have to do this one again. Would you be willing?
Yeah, well,
I'd be willing.
We're doing it right. But she's not there yet.
I would be so happy to listen to the presentation over and over again.
Yeah, Melina's biologist is always a gift. So I have it here. I'm just downloading. And I'm waiting for her to be around.
She's back.
Sorry, I have to reset my internet just because the electricity flicked, but I'm back. I'm sorry about that.
No worry. We're just
Okay.
missing the gap junction and trying to imagine it.
I was
Thank you.
taking notes on the cellular membrane.
Yeah, so this is amazing cellular things that happen, and it is interesting because
Could you go back to the gap junction and just go through
here.
it? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I will put my what happens is that cells needs to communicate, to transfer things between themselves, and especially resources, which means proteins, ions, nutrients, and so on. Because when you think about your body, you don't have blood coming to every cell. Like they need to transfer nutrients in the tissues, like a diffusion kind of transportation of resources. And they do that by integrating those resources and passing into other cells. And they do that with these channels. And the gap junction is one of the most amazing ones because they have this proteins called connexin, which are just doing this kind of flowers that cross the membrane, and we align with the other channel in the other membrane in order to pass through the resources. And there are more complex things that through which can have communication with cells. And for example, the desmosomes that we are showing in the lower drawing, that they are really like have more resources from the membrane. Like the membrane needs to do like a plague, and this plague we align with microtubules, and this is kind of a bigger structure. But actually what is going on is that they are fixing themselves there in order to don't lose their connectivity. So they have like a hooks protein that acts like hooks just in order to keep connected. And they can have different ways of passing this. So like limit and limit, membrane and membrane, and aligning these channels. That's the basic important thing. This is a plant cell, and plants have another kind of way of passing from one cell to another cell, and they fusion. You know that plants have like a cell wall, which is like a cellulose that are around, completely around each cell, and they cannot move. It's not like this, the animal cells, they're just like more moving and not having that structure. So for plants, they need to create this super high structure. It's called plasmodesmata, and they will fusion. Actually, they will completely fusion membranes in order to have these tunnels to pass resources through. And what happens when there is not this passing of resources? The thing is that you can start to accumulate resources, and in a way that will give you a disease, like that it is not balanced what is going on between the cells, and there is this systemic effect of not passing ions or resources, or they will be like escape, and the flow will just go and go and go and go away, and won't be contained into the limits of the membranes and the collective sensing of how to hold the resources inside. So any disbalance of the flow of resources will create diseases, and this is especially diabetes, which is kind of very common now in our society because this imbalance. And I think that this is kind of a way of understanding, if we keep going our society into desiring this kind of big, huge accumulation of resources, we are really losing the possibility of a systemic integration of the flow of the resource. And there are already many emerging possibilities that they are happening more at local level and more like individual and within individuals, which is really interesting how the accumulation of a community is based on the flow of resources and sharing of resources. This is an image of co-housing people and sharing spaces and sharing food production and sharing childcare and so on, which is very contrasting in the level of how this healthy flow of resources is being observed in humans. So what we really need to learn from nature in this is that we are scaling and thinking in scales in a way that probably nature is more used to do it properly. And this is because they are concentrating the sharing of resources in the cellular level to see more systemic healthy. So it's kind of, we need to think about this movement at individual sharing in order to see like a balance in the whole human system. And I want to present you another amazing organism that they are much more evolved in this sharing. Even they will totally lose the separation of the cells, and they will become like kind of a huge one organism, multinucleus, and they're the fungi. And this is in epiphyte, which are the cells of the fungi, and they are separated by septate. But at some point of their development, they will just erase these separations, and it started to be like a completely whole tube of or systems of tubes moving resources. This is a picture. And what happened is that when they are in the forest, actually what they are doing is transferring resources from one place to another place. And in this way, they are like the distribution systems of the forests themselves. So, for example, I don't know if you know this example of salmon in the temperate forests, wet forests of North America. The migration of salmon every year is the only source of nitrogen that the forest, the big system of forests have. So what will happen with these salmons is that they will be decomposed into the soil of the forest, and the source of these salmons going into the trees is actually by bears. But these mushrooms, these fungi that will distribute the excess of the salmon into the soil of this forest. So we have like a big pipeline of distribution of nitrogen through these individual connections that is happening underground with the fungi. And actually they are the biggest trees in the world, and they are, let's say, like accumulating lots of resources, but in a completely healthy distribution of resources for the whole system, which is amazing. And I don't know if you knew about these salmon forests, but this is how it works. And And so the nitrogen of these trees comes from fishes. And this connection, this distribution of resources is one of the most important thing that is happening in those forests, and goes to the cellular level of the fungi and how fungi can move resources from one cell of multicellular connections. So this thinking on scales is really, really interested in nature to move resources. And actually what we have been trying to do with RCN, the Regenerative Communities Network, is to bring this connection, this cellular connection between bioregions that are already trying to regenerate the planet, and we are already connected, and we have been passing lots of information and learning from each other. And what we want to do now is to become this pipeline of resources to be able to finance the local activities and the local bioregions to regenerate the planet. So this is kind of how we want to link big capital with local regeneration through this mycelium that we are as RCN. And this is one of the examples that we have in Costa Rica with Costa Rica Regenerativa. And what we have been experienced is the merge of the radical solidarity. And that means that we understanding how this is really connecting, we can start to regenerate one bioregion at a time. So this is the biology for today, and I just wanted to. I want to hear from you. I want to you know what this thinking in biology or natural thinking have been inspiring in you. So if somebody wants to share something, it could be great.
Well, my first thought when you were talking about the gap junction and what my limited understanding, I want to look into it some more, but it sort of seems like each cell has this membrane, and they're the people, if we're doing analogies, on the edge, right? So the kind of the radical people within their organizations, institutions, fields, and that they then align with the other radical people on the edges of their institutions and fields, and act as the alignment, as the communication between. Mm-hmm. Because not many people are able to speak across the gaps, it seems like, you know, and it feels to me like the interesting space is to align with other people who will, you know, who will try to be those what were they called? Connection proteins.
Yeah,
connection. I mean, what a great word, right? And the other thought I had was that you were talking about accumulation versus flow. And sometimes when, you know, maybe others feel this way, like you're trying to be one of the flow people, right? You're trying to move, but you can feel very disconnected, right? Very but you were talking about bonding also, so that maybe there's a way to create a system where the bonds between the people who are doing the flowing can be maintained, right? So that because I think when you for those of us who maybe feel like we do try to operate at the edges as the connection, yes, it can be challenging to maintain those connections and feel that you're part of something rather than on the edge of something.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted actually, well, I will say that after. I want to hear other people, but yeah, you got that very well. Somebody else would like to share something, some thoughts? Dita.
Thank you, Melina. That was so beautiful and so inspiring. I love the connection with the finances as well. Yeah, what's emerging? So there's something emerged with the example of the salmon, and the trees have, well, not only the trees, but the whole forest has an enormous influence in keeping the habitat for the salmon as well. So in a way, there is the regenerative part of the finances or the resource distribution in that example is that it keeps the salmon healthy, and it keeps the salmon being able to go back to the places where then the nutrients and all that gets incorporated in the system again. And then going back to what you were bringing, Christina, with the flow and the accumulation, I guess there is a flow that goes through very quickly, like water in a soil that is not healthy, that has lost the ability to hold the water. And there is a flow that is kind of trickles. So it's kind of, it feels like it's stagnant, but it's not, because the water is being utilized. So it's kind of staying in very small, kind of with a fractal structure within the system. The resources are being used. So it's not stagnant, but it's not flowing through and going somewhere else. And I think that's a really important difference when we're thinking about economy, because then it's not an accumulation that stays without benefiting the whole ecosystem, but it's a staying in the place and moving around and passing from one element to another and kind of in permanent flow within, instead of going through.
Thank you, Dita. Laura, we want to hear from you. We want to what is it? How you got inspired, and how you have been integrating this thinking and in your work. Tell us a little bit.
Yes, and really, Melina, this session really, blew my mind in terms of what much more exploration and deeper exploration I would have to, dig into, to perhaps co-create more innovative instruments that are, distributed by design, as what you were mentioning. So, hi everyone, and sorry, I was briefly mentioning my life story while you guys were on the other Zoom link. So just brief story. I used to be a banker for some years. I was in asset management and wealth management, up to a point where I was questioning, of course, my life's work, and I had some health issues. So I decided to, I had one of those days that you have like an inflection point, and basically I redesigned my life and basically started looking for something that I didn't even know existed. That was precisely, like regenerative economy, impact investing, and so forth. But I didn't know what existed, and I didn't know to what extent I wanted to, go deep. So the first thing I found was impact investing, and that's where I started to question and restructure and unlearn a lot of the investment beliefs that came from traditional banking. But now when I found a regenerative economy, this was back in 2016 with John Fullerton, and he has been one of my great mentors, and of course, Melina and Hugo and so many from the Regenerative Communities Network. I've really been, restructuring the whole paradigm that needs, to be acknowledged and redesigned for finance. So basically, My work right now is in a lot of co-creation and education for Latin American investors and guiding a lot of processes so that we have more regenerative finance. But of course, all of that starts with a quest of what is regenerative finance, what are regenerative investments, how do we know? And now that Melina brought us, to the microcellular level, I had not thought of it in that, in that degree of detail. I had thought about it like a ecosystem, so like more like the macro ecosystem. So I had thought about finances in terms of regeneration and the way that they mimic nature in the way of bigger ecosystems. I am right now just, digesting and metabolizing what Melina just said about the cells. But basically, I've heard in some sources about, the soil being the most generous bank in the history of humankind. And when I started to, imagine soil as a bank, and precisely that it is absolutely distributive by design instead of being accumulative by design, I knew that was, a very important characteristic that we needed to follow. So distribution by design, nourishing by design, and also the fact that it, touches all and that it's beneath. And the position is very important because we know, that finance has a power structure that is very much a dominant one right now, right? So there's one economic thinker that says that finance used to be, designed to be in service of the economy, and the economy was supposed to be in service of society. But right now, finance is dominating the economy and the economy is dominating society. So instead of being the servant's servant, it's actually the master's master. And that is a problem because, of course, it's missing the even like the position of itself. It's really interesting to see that soil is always beneath us. So it's always at our service, right? So like that power structure of soil being the most generous bank on the history of the planet, how can we really imitate that? And how can banks really imitate the way of the soil? And then Carolina Fernandez from our group in RCN, she invited me once to a session where she was acknowledging water as capital, or capital as water. So basically this flow that Melina is acknowledging, the flow, but imagining, so capital as water and banks as soil, or soil as banks, and and water as capital. And then you start to imagine how that must circulate. And then you start acknowledging, of course, when we over accumulate in one place the water, of course that happens, disease happens. And of course in the rest of the places where we took the water away from, of course, we're also degenerating that ecosystem. So that is the kind of thinking that I've been, that I've been digging into and putting it into practice in Mexico to see what comes out. And basically what we've been doing is co-creating new ways of defining how to finance the regeneration of ecosystems. Right now we are in two different projects, one with USAID and Conservation International that is for 5 ecosystems in Mexico, or landscapes. And what I really like, and I think is really important here about the regenerative principles, is that now I am thinking more and more about finance being place-based instead of sector-based. And this is really important in the roots of regeneration, because finance has lost place. Currently, you can be agnostic of place and you only invest in, let's say, energy or agriculture. So there's like one sector that you do and you don't care about the place. So what happens? For example, here in Mexico, there's a place where they used to rent soil or land, of course, for very industrial agriculture. And what happens is that they already know that they're degenerating the ecosystems in such a way that in some years, of course, that land will be completely infertile and they will have to move on. So since they acknowledge the fact that they are degenerating the ecosystem, they only rent, they don't buy land. So that, that says a lot about the lack of roots to a place, the lack of commitment to a place. So that those kind of systems are, let's say, degenerative by design, because they don't care about the place. So when you do care about the place, you start to look at it in a very long-term relationship, right? And so what I'm really liking about place-based finance and place-based funds, they're kind of the new thing, but they really connect you back to place. And instead of separating verticals of sectors, we start, horizontalizing place and saying, okay, place needs everything. Each place needs the energy and the food, and the education and the health and everything. So instead of separating into verticals, we unite into place. So that is what I think is really beautiful. So some of the things that I wanted to share, but I really want to ask Melina how we are on time, because I did want to use like just 2 graphics, but just let me know, Melina, how we are on time.
Yeah, please go share.
All right. So basically, there's so much to say, about the reflection of the regenerative principles in real finance. But I think with the topics that Melina started today, the distributive by design is something really, really important. And what we have, there's this really a cool structure that is called self-liquidating equity. So I'm going to write it in the chat in case anyone. Self-liquidating equity, which means basically that debt as an instrument is accumulated by design. And there's like this cartoon, about banks that says like the house always wins, which means with debt, there's a, inherent quality about extraction that happens, because you're only creating interest and not necessarily destroying it. Whereas in a distributive system, you create, but you also, destroy so that it never accumulates that much. But in debt, interest is always accumulating. And the problem is all our monetary systems are accumulating interest all the time, and it never stops. And it does not have a limit to that accumulation of interest. So we think that is kind of a little bit toxic by design in the way that it's designed today. So we tried to, replace regular debt with some other structures. And the thing I like about self-liquidating equity is precisely that it's a little bit more about flow and about distribution by design. So the way it works is that, so the very first example I ever knew in Mexico was this company that was invested, of course, by big investors, but the owners, so the ownership was split. This is the whole pie, right? The 100% of the pie. And one part of the pie is carved out for the farmers that are working it. And the 90% of the pie is taken by the investors that put the capital in. But, the farmers are putting their labor and their land. So basically, in around 10 to 12 years, the structure goes so that with the sales of the produce, they are paying back and let's say buying back the stock. So what happens is that each sale and profit divides into 3 pockets: the individual pocket, so that everyone has their own cash; the collective pocket, so that the collective governance starts strengthening; and the third pocket is the buyback pocket. So with those 3 pockets, you end up redistributing that the ownership of the company, and at the end of the period, 100% of the company is farmer owned. So instead of you having to exit to an external investor that had no clue about this, or it could be, a large corporation, big ag, you actually respect the fact that the ones who got completely transformed from farm labor to actual shareholders are the farmers themselves. So I really, really like that structure. That was back in 2014 when I first saw it in life, and it was really exciting. So it's now 6 companies in Mexico that are working like that, and that are on their, let's say, like 4th or 5th year of working like that. So, and we are now seeing, other fund structures as well, not just company structures, but fund structures that are also working that way. So like a fund cooperative, where if I invest, let's say in DITA, DITA as an investee will now be part of my investment decision in the next round. So now DITA from investee goes to investor in one round, right? So that also, like the distribution of the power dynamic, is also very important, and it is very much implicit in the design of the financing structures. So finance by design right now is controlling, and it's accumulative. And now, so what we want to do is let's make finance by design liberating and distributive. And that way, I think just by changing those 2 paradigms, it changes a lot. But if we also can change it from sector-based to place-based, we're like, we're going all in, we're going all the way to regeneration. I know it's very few of the like really systemic investors that are in that level of understanding, but more and more we are educating. Right now, we've educated over 1,000 investors in Latin America. So more and more we see people that are moving away from just changing the what they invest in to changing the how they invest in it, to changing the who are the decision makers and the beneficiaries, and to changing the why. So by really questioning the purpose of capital, and by really questioning if we're still investing for the sake of the eternal reproduction of money, versus if we are investing with the understanding that the regeneration of ecosystems and ourselves is intrinsic to everyone's abundance, then everything changes, right? So I just wanted to share screen really quickly, because I know we're out of time. Wait, can you see my screen right now? Yes. Okay. So here is a piece that we did last year precisely about regeneration as an impact imperative. And here what you can see is basically an investment spectrum. Instead of looking at investments for the sake of their type of asset class or for their type of returns, we're here looking at investments for the sake of if this makes people live, survive, thrive, or die. So basically you have, in the destructive, you have the investments that make people and planet die, which is, weapons and so many things that are destructive by design. And then on the extractive, you have so many, not just, mining and fossil fuels are the usual ones, but all the ones that are extracting more value from the system than what they're putting in. So just one quick example, in Mexico, there's a fintech that is doing financial inclusion, charging more than 5,000% plus tax of interest rate. So even though they might be adding some value in terms of financial inclusion or jobs created, they are extracting so much that they're net extractive. So basically any sector can be net extractive. Agriculture could be net extractive, etc. It depends on how it's done. And then the responsible are less negative, but not necessarily neutral. The neutrals are the sustainable ones that I think many of you perhaps have seen Bill Reed's Spectrum. So this is very much inspired on Bill Reed's Spectrum, but in investments. So sustainability is this bridge, it's a bridge, and it's a neutrality point of like stopping the damage, but not necessarily doing the restoration part, the healing. So all of the pluses in the impact side on the right, they're adding value, they're net value adders by design. So you have the social enterprise, you have the non-extractive transformational finance, which is exactly the one that I told you about right now, the one that is distributed by design. So not only is creating wealth in an ecosystem, but also how we distribute it. And then the door, of course, to the regenerative one is the transformational one. It is very important to acknowledge the distributive piece and acknowledge, of course, the centuries of ecocide, colonialism, so many things that we really, really, really need to re-indigenize finance, not just decolonize it. to actually get to regenerative design. So I'm going to leave this link over there so that you can take a look at this quadrant about how we define in a very hyper simplistic way what we call regenerative investments in an axis of productivity versus eco-social health. And that's what I wanted to share today, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope I can hear your comments and questions, and I will be leaving this link on the chat. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's what we really want to hear from finance. We want to understand how it has to evolve, because actually from gap junctions to IFAS and mycelium distribution, there is an evolution path, and we really need to go and understand better how to integrate those. And I want to just mention what Christina said before about like how we can feel ourselves at different levels of that like scale of I am kind of a connecting protein, or I am doing a connection. Who is there? Hello, you are a connection. Let's bring it in here. Like this kind of conscious of the local level and how we can act, and what is our function at some point in time and space that will really let us understand what is really going on at bigger scales, and how everything is moving. But we need that junction at some point, like, so it's kind of navigating with the whole understanding, but just with the acknowledging of what we are doing ourselves, and how we are part of a bigger system of connectivity and distribution. So just to have like this big picture of what we are doing and how we could become an ecosystem. I don't know, Hugo, do you want to say something, and or do you want to show something? I don't know.
Yes, so thank you. I don't think I want to miss next chapter. I want to be there, and thank you a lot for all this biology and this finance that has been shared, because it is not just that we need to hear it, but it is really nice to know that it's happening, and this is reconforting and giving us more hope in terms of what it could be done. And I think the way to achieve this is by actually creating this critical connection amongst us. So when I see what we are doing and talking about these possibilities of connections and extreme layers, then I just think about us and I say, well, we are here. This is the edge. This is the ecotone. This is the membrane. This is what we are doing. So how can we actually enhance each other and just try to bring this regeneration idea into the soil? So I want to share two things, and if you want to leave, it's fine. I completely understand it because we are over time. If you have another 5 to 10 minutes, then perfect. So we can keep going on this, and next time will be better organized, I think. So in my case, I use cell membrane as an analogy also for the digital part. And when you say that it is kind of micro, Laura, I think that it is micro, but for me, after studying systems in biomimicry, I believe that it is always like very interconnected. So it is not different than an ecosystem. It is different scale, but the functionalities are exactly the same. So over time, you get to realize that where is universal, micro, it's all kind of in a fractal way. So my way of understanding this was about communication, transportation, and protection. And this is how I envision to create a digital membrane. So what I was thinking is that maybe what we are needing, it is this possibility of digital membrane in financial way. So we have better filters and these kind of signals that are coming from the exterior, and like the place is not being recognized as an important signal for finance, then it might be the right tool to develop in one way or another. And then I wanted to bring some inspiration. Let me see if if I can just share the whole this one. And it doesn't have any sound, but I think it could be relevant for what we are trying to explain now. And this is on the mycorrhizal fungi, which is all these networks. So it is on ecosystem engineering. Is if it's provided with the right conditions, it will thrive, and it is a sticky living seam that holds soil together. Being there as the soil increase the volume of water that soil can absorb, so it enhances functionality, support intricate food webs, but they are also a keystone organism for the ecosystems, and they behave as underground communities, and they are organically managed fields. And let me see well, they are a keystone species. They feed plants. They increase the duality of the they increase the quality of the harvest. Sorry, I cannot turn the screen here. And there are amazing associations. So I believe that this is a great opportunity for us to understand what we're actually doing as a whole, not just extracting one part or the other in terms of organism, but trying to see that it happens because of the connection. So one living being is nothing without the others. So how can actually we can be relevant in an evolutionary way as a species? So if you think about evolution, you don't want to take the soil out of the equation, as Laura was thinking. But the same happens with trees. And the trees and the mycelium, they establish a relationship where they were exchanging nutrients, and we will see it in the next time, but they were actually adding value to each other. So now we have one or many different layers that we have to nourish, where water, it is the leading, is weaving life over all this spectrum. So how can we actually understand this kind of connections so we can infuse energy in one way or another? So what you explained me sometimes about mycelium was that also they are making tubular structures, and the older tubular structure is helping to funnel the energy in such a way that makes it efficient to the one that is on the front end. So how can we actually push resources towards what is working, whether it's in one country or in other, and we can take these different perspectives. So from my place of understanding, I really enjoy this conversation, and I really think that you are doing such a great job, and I feel privileged to be sharing the time with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everyone, to be here. And please come back on Wednesday because we will be working a little bit more on ecosystems and how we can integrate the ecosystemic thinking into finances. And Stuart Cohen will be with us. So that will be another great conversation. So thank you very much to everyone. And please let us know. I saw the chat full, and please let us know any question and email and whatever the conversation can be.
I would like a special thanks to Ben Roberts and the dojo for offering us this space. And I think this is a way to show how collaboration can actually create something bigger than ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're somehow embodying a lot of what we heard today. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Speaking of connections and supporting one another, the Hilo platform is one where the Regenerative Communities Network is going to be moving its online asynchronous conversations. We've also set up the dojo with a space there. It doesn't have much going on now, but I think I have everyone's email address because you registered for this. So maybe we'll set up a way to continue the conversation in Hilo. Christina, did you sign up on the calendar? I'm not sure if I might not have yours.
I signed up somewhere.
Hold on, I'll just confirm that. So I don't. Do you think that would be nice to try to take some of this? We could post the video there and create space for a text-based conversation that builds on these sessions. Should we? Yeah, I've got you, Christina.
Great. Yeah. Perfect.
And also, if maybe we can make them an hour and a half. So also we have more, I don't know, so that we have more spaciousness to also talk, because I feel like all of us are probably full and we'd like to be able to share. So that feels, yeah, I wouldn't want to see all of this go. And I resonate with that, Ben, one way or another. I don't know who's able to stay or what we can do also right now. I know that I would love to share also, to echo back kind of what landed for me, and I'm sure perhaps others want to as well.
I can do it, and I will be really happy to hear what landed.
Me too.
Great. So there's one thread that I saw when Melina was exploring all these layers, or introducing all these layers of how the connection happens and when that image of that human full and the other one where the liquid goes out, and that notion of erosion and then retention, and then the spectrum in between those, and how each of us is somewhere there, and over time we do change, and so noticing the quality of the flow, I think, was something that really became apparent. First of all, is noticing the flows in our embodiment at moment to moment, and then noticing what's the quality, and just even that presence to it shifts the quality of the experience of the flow. That's one aspect, but yeah, just this, and one image that landed for me when the was the tea here in Morocco. Mint tea is like sacred, and when you pour it, it's like a sport, because like people will go really up and people are very good and they land in this tiny cup. But it's not just for the show. It really is that the tea tastes completely different. You'll have these beautiful bubbles, and so that experience is completely different. And Laura said one thing in particular, which was it's all about how it's done, and really bringing, because otherwise, when you, like, sometimes I've had tea overnight, which is like, if I would tell my uncle who's tea master, he would cut, he wouldn't appreciate the fact that I'm drinking overnight tea, because it's completely flat. And I think even I have friends that are at the extreme, that they'll only go to the water source to drink water from, and that's such a privilege that person gets to live in that experience. And I'm not suggesting that that's where we're heading, but just that she has the intelligence to understand that the quality of the water changes completely her life experience. And I really appreciate that about Monica. So that's a bit, noticing the flows, and then witnessing their quality.
Thank you, Dunia. Rob, did you raise your hand?
I was sort of, but I saw that Dita was doing it.
Oh, and then I saw Harry was about to speak. Domino effect. I can wait. I've spoken already.
Harry, please.
Harry, yeah.
Well, I'd like to just say something. I've never heard so many mic drops in one Zoom call. That is extraordinary. I mean, the absolute wonder of wonders that each of you presented was extraordinary. And the keystone to all of this on the planet is us.
Yes.
And if we recognize from the biological viewpoint, the planet is waiting for us. And that's a very different perspective in terms of how we move forward, that it is our shift in consciousness that will reveal what the planet will be looking like in the 10 years that we have, so to speak. I don't know, there's this timeline out there that's truly up to us. And this group today, the planet is very happy. And I think that's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Harry, it's almost, it's definitely in line with what I want to say, is that if we just constantly realize that the planet is a living a creature like we are, and that what is happening right now, the mess we're in, is that the imbalances we are causing need to be shifted, and we will be all happier from it, even the billionaires, if we get this resource flow underway, and at least go quickly to stop the destruction of the vital organs of our planet, then we might still have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. How beautiful to hear those things named. I do think just naming it has an effect. So thank you for that. I was just realizing that a difference in the way the flow works, and now I'm thinking about cellular resource flow and health and disease as well. So what I call the healthy system, the flow of resources happens on the basis of need. So the resources go to the place and to the extent that they are needed and they are available. But when the system is not in health, for instance, when there is cancer growth, the resources are not pulled in by need, what we could call by greed, which is what happens in a lot of the financial system. So a lot of the economy that we have at the moment is based on creating a niche for consumption, which is not based on needs. So most of the economy at the moment is not based on needs, it's based on artificial niches that are created so that people spend resources. So that would be it has a huge potential to be an enormous nodal intervention if we can actually try to modulate the way the system works, so to make that sponginess of the soil available for the financial system that is then just driven by need and not by greed. I don't know if that's possible without a spiritual transformation, but I don't know, maybe it is, I don't know. It just occurred to me.
Thank you, Dita. And yeah, absolutely. Like this is what is going on. And next session we will be talking about ecosystems and how to rebalance ecosystems and bring this healing. Actually, we cannot thrive during healing from flu or COVID or whatever, you know, like we are recovering, we are restoring our health. And we need time to do that, but we really need to stop drinking Coca-Cola during the flu time, you know, and start drinking, you know, like cinnamon and ginger, and to restore our system. Like this is kind of, yeah, kombucha. This is kind of what is going on. Like there is a moment of awareness, and we really need to shift to another focus and just don't put more attention to those kind of addictive behaviors that we had at so many levels, and to give us the time to recover, to restore the soil, to bring you know, like a distribution of resources. And there is a part where we need to trust, and a little bit like Harry was saying, the planet is alive and we are part of the planet. So it's kind of, we really need to be healed, and to heal, to be part of a healthy planet. And that's what is going on. And I don't think that this rise of awareness is because ourselves, it's because the planet is becoming aware and bringing, you know, this huge vibration of consciousness to its own system. And it is just as part of that system. So we are becoming aware. It's like the sympathetic nervous system becoming aware of the whole dynamic that is involved. So there are much understanding of you know, like the dynamic that we really need. And I think that for me to know a little bit more about biology brings me to that kind of sensitivity of the roles and the functions that we can play at some point. And it is not like defining our lives being connecting, or, you know, it's just like, oh, I am connecting things now. I am acting as a connector. So just accomplish that function that rises, and just be with it. And maybe we can shift at some other point, and just kind of undefining our roles, perspective, determinations in life that we were educated to define ourselves. Now we're like kind of undefining, liquidifying ourselves, and bringing us to another reorganization. Okay, we are in a metamorphosis process, so we will be butterflies soon. So sure. Dunia, you wanted to say something.
Yes, you noticed. I was like, thank you for that. With one of the things that I think also during the session just really, and it was in the making through the dojo, because there was, I think the journey began with the money game that was offered, and understanding all of the projections that I had onto money. And realizing money is not the problem. Like, there is that part, but the money is not the problem. And actually it's the whole architecture around it, and how it flows, and what we do with that energy, the energy of money. And it's the whole structure of how we move it, and how that's what's not working for us. It's not money per se. And that's where the biomimicry finance makes so much sense, because that is so in the solution. But this work of detoxifying, of healing, of all of that takes going through the process of understanding all of these projections, becoming aware of all of these, which are also currents, because they're building our reality. That's one way of looking at it. They are building our reality and how we perceive things. So that was in listening to all these ideas about how the flow could go. And that is another thing that became clear. So thank you.
I'm just trying to follow Donia's comment. Money is not the problem. When we relate to water as thinking in finance, they really think that money is water. I have my issues on that one, because I cannot live on water. And on money, sorry, and I can't live on water. So this is very, very difficult to me to understand it, because when the crisis hit and the COVID came, I'm not gonna be able to eat not even in tacos, you know, the bills that I have. Of course, I understand completely what the money can bring us, but I cannot make a taco of a bill. And this is already something, or a arepa or a crepe, you know, like you need something to eat in terms of exchanging real energy. But then if we take this analogy of money and water together, and saying that money is not the problem, it is exactly the same way that we are treating water. By putting dams on the rivers, we are cutting the flow of life that goes downstream. So analyzing this inside the network as well with Glenn, it was about to understanding the bioregion, and how over time, by building infrastructure and by developing the landscape, we have been able to cut all the flows. So it is kind of the same analogy. The problem is not the water flowing, but it is really building dams or accumulating as until being diabetic in one way or another. So it is really about optimal flows, and those are related with the specific place.
Yeah, and I will add something about the let's say the currency in nature. Actually, it does exist. It's called ATP, adenine triphosphate, and it is a molecule that it is synthesized in the mitochondria, and it is the transformation of energy. And this molecule will be the coin, energetic coin for the whole metabolic processes and many other reactions in the metabolism will use ATP to extract energy from it and to use it for its own processes. So this coin is actually very mobile in the cell, and it is something that it will regenerate itself. Like ATP will become ADP and phosphate, and so it will just bring it like back to have more energy gathered there, and then we'll put it in another place. Thank you, Laura. Laura has to go, and thank you very much for being and sharing here. But and the last thing is that, you know, like we really need to don't stick with analogies, especially from nature, because we know the tip of the iceberg, and we are just discovering like a quantic biology, and whoa, you know, like there are so many things that are there, and we really need to you know to get this, and in a very humility way. So thank you, Laura, for sharing all your work and your special, you know, like thinking about this. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Laura.
Bye, Laura.
So thank you. I think it is okay until now. We have all spoken, and the idea of this experiment is to build it in 3 chapters. So Melina has created all this discussion in a beautiful and biological way, so we can increase the depth of our conversation over time. So if you feel to be around the next session, please do it. And let's just communicate on how to get the right link, and that's it. And please, thank you, Melina. Thank you, everyone. I've seen so many familiar faces, and thank you for having the dojo and for having this space for us, Ben.
Yeah, sorry about the link confusion. I will update the calendar with the Zoom links that you shared originally, so we shouldn't have this problem next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Wednesday.